To keep things simple, I manifested my SP the first time very easily, as I basically just held the assumption that she was obsessed with me and would tell me she wanted to be my girlfriend. I visualized her telling me it a few times, but I didn't really care too much. It felt plausible already. This exact scene happened while we were on a dinner date one night, and I told her I had basically spoken it into existence. Fast forward, not to get into the details, but a lot of shit on both ends. Both of us were hurt and eventually we split. Looking back on it now, both our energy definitely manifested us breaking up, as she had insecurities about my intentions and I was in an awful state mentally with very little self-love. So the day it happened I crashed and burned a little, but let it stay in that day. From then I started focusing more on my hobbies, hanging out with my friends, working out again, and really just trying my best to love myself and show myself how amazing life can be alone. It's important to remember you are alone but not lonely. Finally she reaches out, about 3 weeks into the breakup, and I'm real excited. It had already been a great week. She said she was ready to talk and that we could meet in a few days. This was great. I thought all my efforts had paid off, but I dropped the ball. I let my guard down, the self-concept I had built up folded, and I completely self-sabotaged by letting all these what-ifs creep into my mind. Ultimately, my neediness and coming from a place of lack and fear caused what I thought to be the worst-case scenario at the time. Not only did she say she didn't want to talk anymore, she said some really mean things to me and basically told me leave her alone forever. Yeah, that all sounds pretty bad, but I was in such disbelief at the situation that it didn't feel real at all. It felt like the most obvious test from God because of how ridiculous it was. I took the time to be in shock for a bit, and when I get home I just rampaged. I told myself none of this was real and affirmed until I felt good again. The entire week I have been sticking to not checking anything, immediately flipping negative thoughts to positive, and doing a few techniques when I feel like it. I stuck to the news story that she reached out to me feeling awful and apologized for everything and that she needed me back. Surely enough, the 3D conformed last night and I couldn't be happier. I'm honestly glad I had to go through this because as someone who has been practicing for almost 5 years, I was getting so complacent. This situation reminded me that nothing is real in the 3D and your imagination is. I'm telling you, if you really dislike your 3D circumstances, lay in bed for a little and just imagine your dream life. See it all and realize that that is more real than the one you think you experience. You are God, you are limitless, and you always get what you want. Be a spoiled teen and claim your birthright. Look around you and realize that every single thing was created by you, the source. This is a list of my manifestations since I learned the law. I manifested my ex back twice. I manifested a new boyfriend and our breakup. I manifested autoimmune disease away. I manifested my dad working for huge companies. I manifested a new iPhone. Now, you might think I'm a master manifester after all this, but nope, I still kind of suck. I'm going to tell you how I manifested each one and my conclusions. For my ex, the first time I used SATs, and the second time, I just imagined a scene while wide awake. When I opened my eyes, it happened. It was instant, and I'll tell you why. It happened so quickly because I already had the existing belief that he always comes back, so it was easy for me to believe and decide. For the boyfriend, I made a list of all the qualities I wanted in a man and read it for a few days, then let it go. I didn't obsess over this one or constantly think about it because I already had a good self-concept. A month later, it happened. Every detail on that list was there. It was so freaky. As for the autoimmune disease, I kept convincing myself that I was misdiagnosed, even after years of suffering. I managed to actually believe that I was wrongly diagnosed, and then I went to the doctor. He said the magic words, "You've been misdiagnosed. You don't have lupus." As for my dad's job, I just had this fleeting thought, wouldn't it be nice if he worked for these companies, and that I should try to manifest it. I didn't try or use any techniques, and 2 days later, it happened. I manifested a new iPhone. Now, I was trying to manifest the 15 Pro, but my brain just couldn't believe it because it was so new and such a big upgrade. I thought it would be easier to get the 13, so I let it go. A month later, I received the 13 as a gift. As you can see, it's all about belief and not about the technique at all. Even after all these manifestations, I still can't get the big stuff. So, what I'm working on right now is really ingraining the notion that my awareness is the true reality and that the 3D world is just a reflection. That's what we all should do. No matter how many success stories you read, how many videos you watch, how many books you read, or how much you believe in the law, the problem is your belief and faith. That needs work in order to truly become a master manifester. A few words to help you believe that awareness is the only reality. Today's events will be an imagination the next day when you recall them. Last year's events are now an imagination too. Today's imagination will be tomorrow's events. So, what's more real, imagination or the physical world? Are you actually here? Do you identify as this three-dimensional body and nothing more? Or are you in another dimension while being aware that you have a body? Can you see, hear, or touch your thoughts, feelings, or inner conversations? No, because they're not three-dimensional objects, and neither are you. Also, the idea that you need to impress the subconscious and use techniques specifically for it is misguided. Your conscious mind and subconscious are not separate entities, they are both part of you. You need to convince yourself. In fact, your conscious mind is more important because it's the one we are trying to influence and trick. The subconscious takes what the conscious mind believes to be true and accepts it as fact. The subconscious doesn't think on its own, it doesn't use language or logic. It communicates through feelings. What you, with your conscious mind, feel to be true is what gets passed on to the subconscious. And that's why most people prefer SATs or hypnosis, because your conscious mind isn't as analytical then, making it easier to believe suggestions in this state and quickly pass them along to the subconscious. If you're doing techniques while wide awake, you're bound to waver and cancel the suggestions out. That's why Neville said that until perfect self-control is attained, use prayer to help you. If you already have that self-control, you don't need to use SATs or any technique. And that's why most people prefer SATs or hypnosis, because your conscious mind isn't as analytical then, making it easier to believe suggestions in this state and quickly pass them along to the subconscious. If you're doing techniques while wide awake, you're bound to waver and cancel the suggestions out. That's why Neville said that until perfect self-control is attained, use prayer to help you. If you already have that self-control, you don't need to use SATs or any technique. How I was healed of urine leakage. I don't remember exactly when this urine leakage started, but it's a matter of years. Started as leaking a few times every couple of months to leaking every day. It started so gradually that I accepted it as a part of life, but it was bad, really bad. Now to my revision story and how it had affected this condition I had. Almost 6 months ago I had to take care of registration in the City Hall office. I wanted them to change something, so I went to their office. I went along with my husband. We approached the representative, which couldn't help us, so she said we should talk to her supervisor, who was the head of this department. The representative told us to wait in the supervisor's office and that she would come soon and help. A few minutes later she came in, and from the moment she went into her office she was so aggressive and unwilling to listen. I don't know why, but she was mean. She yelled at us, cut us mid-sentences, told us to leave her office at once and refused to help. We were both in shock the whole time, and my husband, who is very collected and calm usually, was furious. I told her she is being very aggressive towards us with no reason, since we just came for her assistance, but it was like taking to a child having a tantrum, there was no point. We got out of her office and I just sat in the hallway bench and cried. My husband tried to console me, but I was just having a mental conversation with myself, telling myself this is not the truth, I don't accept this situation. A manager from adjacent office invited us and told me to tell her what is wrong. I told her what was the situation. She gave me a glass of water and tissue, told me that she is very touched by us and would try her best to help, and she did help us so much. She talked to right people, which solved the issue I first came in for. She also gave me her personal number and asked for an update when all is done. She was wonderful, and she was the answer to my mental conversation which I had on that bench, I am sure of that. Now to the revision story. That whole day the first supervisor kept bothering me in my thoughts, and was having mental arguments with her the whole day. By the time I went to bed I had enough and I made a decision to revise the whole interaction we had. I was lying in bed and tried revising the meeting with her, but every time I tried to revise, it would go back to her yelling at us. I tried and I tried, but I couldn't stop it from going back to her being aggressive. Then I stoked it and talked to the God in me. I asked it to help me. I told the God in me that I want to release this woman, I want to correct this, but I need help. After this prayer I tried one more time to do the revision. This time it was different. I want to share some success with you all that have taken place for me. I have now mastered manifesting the things that I want. I feel it first started with giving myself love and daily meditation and telling myself on a regular basis how much I love myself. I also have worked on trauma and giving silently forgiveness to people who have hurt me. The forgiveness was for me not to hold on and let go. The biggest one was forgiveness to the person that SA me. Which took me a few tries for that to take place and for me to mean it. I also gave forgiveness to myself for anything I have done that has hurt me. December I bought a new bullet journal and I made a decision in Jan I was going to Greece. I don't know when or how I will get the money, but I'm going. I printed out pictures from Pinterest on my InstaLink mini printer as if I took those photos myself, put them in my journal and planned out my trip with pricing. Within a few days I had a job interview for a job I didn't apply to. My uncle recommended me to a friend and they looked over my resume and told me what to fix and then sent it along to HR. I had a wonderful interview. Every question I practiced for they asked and it was over the phone, so I had my notes with me. Then I had the final interview. My final interview was so relaxed, professional, but they made me feel comfortable. I knew I got the job when she walked me out and patted me on the shoulder. Within a few hours I got a phone call. I got the job from HR. I was expecting it to be within 2 weeks I would hear back. I also manifested excellent credit. I had to get a background check for the job and I passed but didn't know what my credit was. I was just trying for good credit, but I went into a bank for something not related to my new job and the lady told me they will need to run a credit check. I was nervous because right before she told me the result she left and I was like, oh no, but I quickly affirmed and she came back and was like, sorry, my child's sick, I had to call them. When she looked at the screen she said you have excellent credit. I was shocked, especially since I got a phone call that day about missing a payment and I was struggling for some time. I also had the perfect last day at my old job. My managers congratulated me on my new job. I was surprised, 3 of them, the other 2 I didn't get to see before I left. But they all congratulated me, which I've never heard them do with anyone else. All the customer I helped that day were so nice and everyone on my last day was so happy for me, it felt like a dream. I also manifested a large amount of money. I only wanted $500 and ended up getting thousands. I had a client from my side business also request if they could make adjust to an item I sell and they would pay extra for it to be a custom order. Another example, I healed my swollen knee. The meds the doctor gave me stuck, LOL, barely worked and I was on them for 2 months. I started affirming I'm so grateful and thankful my knees have instantly healed. The next day on Amazon something popped up for knee health and someone commented instantly made them feel better. Bought it and it arrived a day before it was scheduled. Been using it and my knees feel great. How? Affirm with gratitude and visualize end result. Example, I visualized who I would text once I got the job and what the text would say. I think this will help people who have trouble visualizing what they want. Just visualize your phone in your hand reading the text you're about to send that says you got whatever it is you want to manifest. What I say when I affirming I'm so grateful to be, or I'm so grateful and thankful for, also started saying isn't it wonderful that something marvelous is happening to me right now, I'm so grateful and thankful. Read this on someone post and started saying it during my day. Also, you don't have to do sats at night. I have trouble after some time focusing and I drift off to sleep or lose concentration. So I'll do visualization and affirming when I meditate in the morning or sats when I nap or sometimes at night when I'm not too sleepy. The point is to do affirming and visualization in the way that works for your life. The technique of sats is to visualize from your POV, so make sure you aren't looking at yourself from outside of yourself, but that you are in your visualization as yourself in your body. It's a present scene that you are in. I'm 27 years old. I've always been very rational. I've been agnostic since I was 18 and I've never believed in supernatural things. But some things bothered me a lot. Several unlikely things that I really wanted or was really afraid of happening ended up happening. Everything I focused on too much just ended up happening. Mainly bad things. My rational mind tried to explain it as it's just a coincidence, selective memory, but later, when I was 26 years old, I decided to test if it was a coincidence or real. Until then, I had never read about the law of assumption or Neville. Well, I had two things I wanted to change. One, I had a type of cardiac arrhythmia. My heart would sometimes beat out of rhythm and it bothered me a lot, even though it was benign. Two, my shoulder move out of place on its own, even with small movements. Even a sneeze would make it move out of place, and only surgery could fix it. One night, while meditating, I said to myself, from tomorrow on, my heart will never beat wrong again and my shoulder will never move out of place again. Sure enough, months went by and my shoulder and heart had no problems. I was amazed and thought this is not possible. One day I started to get very worried and had intrusive thoughts saying that it was just a coincidence again and that it was not possible to change physical reality. The same day my heart beat wrong again, after months of being normal. I was very frustrated and started to read about similar experiences on the internet. So I thought, I need to test it one more time, but this time it will be something that is not possible to change. So I chose height as the desired object. I'm 27 and I stopped growing since I was 17, I couldn't change my height naturally. I was 1.745 m, almost 5 feet 9 inches, in the morning and 1.725 meters 5 feet 8 inches before bed. Funny that when I was a kid I always said to myself when I grow up I'll be 1.73 meters 5 feet 8 inches tall. In other words, I ended up manifesting this height as a kid, but anyway, I said to myself, I need to be 1.78 m, 5 feet 10 inches, tall night height. I kept this in mind. I focused for weeks with meditation and other techniques. I also developed some techniques, trying to do the same when I was manifesting bad things years before. About 2 months later some people started saying that I was taller. When two co-workers told me this, I decided to measure myself at home that same night to see if there had been any change, and measured 1.79 m tall at that night. I couldn't contain my happiness at having achieved something that seemed impossible. A few weeks have passed and I'm still the same height. So I just wanted to share this story with anyone who feels hopeless and hasn't gotten the results they were hoping for.